Okay, so we are going to show you how to put together the triple bunk bed and drawer. And the first thing you need to do is make sure you have all the pieces. It looks quite intimidating since there are a lot of pieces, but you have to basically remember that it's really just making the drawer and then doing the same thing 3 times for the bunk beds, which is, 4 screws on either end. So it's very, very simple, but let's make sure you have all the pieces. So you need to have 3 of these pillows and 3 of these bags that go on the end of the beds, and they should have Velcro on the back that holds them to the back of the beds. You should have a piece that is called the A piece, and that's the piece that looks like the front of the drawers, like this piece. The B piece is the back of the drawer, and then the 2 C pieces are the sides of the drawer. You should have 6 blankets, so those one for the bottom and one for the top of each of the triple bunk beds. Then you should have the bottom bunk, that is the piece with the wide part on the bottom that the drawer goes underneath, and each of the bunks have a piece of Velcro on the back, which is what holds your goodie bag on the end of the bunk bed. And then you would have 4 pieces of the middle and the top trunk, and then 6 pieces of piece E that are the side pieces, the side rails for each of the beds. And then you have 3 of piece H, which are the bottom pieces of each of the beds, and 1 piece D, which is the bottom of the drawer that goes underneath the beds. So the first thing we're going to do is make the drawer. So to make the drawer, all we need is pieces A, B, and 2 pieces of C, and then piece D, which is the bottom of the drawer. You can put piece D aside because that's going to slide in very easily. We're going to take piece A and B, making sure that the 2 grooves are lined up together on the bottom. See? And then we're going to take one of the piece C's, making sure that the larger holes are on the outside, and we are going to make sure that we put A and B onto. Make sure you get the small screws. We can put them in, both of them in, so that we can line up the holes with the screws and screw them in on both sides. That's a tip. Screw them both in just a little bit to make sure that they're lined up before you screw either one of them in all the way. So screw that one in a little bit, screw this one in a little bit, and then once you have them both screwed in a little bit, you know that both the screws are lined up and you can continue to screw them in. Very important, make sure that your groove on the drawer sides are lined up on the bottom to line up with the drawer and not on the top. Now you can see we've got one side of the drawer screwed in all the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the bottom of the drawer in here. So we're just going to turn it up on its side so that we can see the grooves. And we're going to take our piece, making sure that the Wish logo is on the underneath, and we are going to line it up with the bottom of the bed. And we're going to slide that on down. Okay. When that's down, what we're going to do is we're going to take the other half of the drawer and we're going to screw that in, remembering that we want to line up the screws before we screw either one of them in very hard so that we can get both of the screws into their correct place. Remember, as you were screwing these screws, make sure that you stop when you feel any resistance. These pieces of wood are very thin and you don't want to split the wood by screwing the screws in too far. So make sure each screw finds its hole here. I think we have that one lined up. Yeah, we do. And then this one also is the last one. And that one's lined up. And then we can go ahead and finish screwing this in. Then we'll start on the first bed. Okay, so now you can see that the drawer that goes underneath the 3 bunk beds is actually complete. It's all screwed together. And we're going to start on the bottom bunk. What you need to do for the bottom bunk is to make sure that you take the 2 pieces that have the wider piece on the bottom So you're going to get those two pieces, and you're going to make sure also that you make sure that the Velcro piece is on the end, and that all of the Velcro pieces are on the end, so that the little goodie bags line up on the end of the bunk bed. So for this, you're going to need these two pieces. You're going to need two of your side rails. That's piece E. And you're going to need your H piece. And basically all we're doing is putting 4 screws in the end of each of these pieces to make sure that the side rails go in, and then sliding in the base bottom, and then doing it another 2 times so that we have 3 beds. So let's do the first one. We're going to take the headboard piece first. Let's put this aside for now. And what we're going to do is the same thing we did with the drawer, which is we're going to make sure that we can line up the bed rails with the screws. And the way that you do that is you take the screws, put them through the large end of the bed, make sure they push all the way through. You may need your screwdriver to help you. And then before you start screwing them in, screw both of them in just a little ways to make sure that you have both of the holes lined up. So you can put it on your lap, and you can put the screws over the holes. Screw that one in just a little tiny bit, and then screw that one in just a little tiny bit so they're lined up, and then you can just go ahead and finish screwing them in. Okay, so now we have those 2 pieces screwed in. We're just going to do the same thing. We're going to put the bed on its base. We're going to slide in the bottom of the bed. And we are going to do the same thing with the top being screwed in. So I'm going to move out of the way a little bit here. I'm going to get the piece, remembering to make sure that the Velcro is on the outside. Put those here, line up our holes first and foremost. And I'm going to do that on all 4 sides this time. Starting on this side. Screw that one in just a little bit, just to make sure I have the hole. And same on that one, just to make sure I have the hole. And then I'm going to do it on this side, just to make sure they are in the correct hole. And they are all lined up, so then I can go and finish tightening these screws. So now I have the bottom bunk done, I can actually just go ahead and put my bedding on the bottom bunk. So that would be the bottom blanket and the top blanket and the pillow, and then I can take the goodie bag that goes here and just make sure it velcros to the bottom of the bunk, and we have one ready. Now what we're going to do for the other 2 is the exact same thing we did for this one. Make sure to remember to line up the screws in the holes before you tighten them, and you can go ahead and finish the other 2 bunks, and then we'll take a look at what it looks like when it's finished. Here is the middle bunk complete. Make sure that when you do the middle bunk, you get the 2 end pieces that have the holes on the top, because the top bunk does not have holes. So if you accidentally mix the pieces, you won't be able to stack the beds correctly. The completed triple bunk bed. And it looks beautiful with a drawer in the bottom. And it didn't take that long to make.